Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Jeff Poole.
And I'm Joe Lalo.
And we have not one but two guests for you this week. A couple of authors who write some science fiction romance, and they have been putting together their third Pets in Space anthology. And my pen name is a part of this one, I should confess straight up. And they're going to be talking about kind of how to successfully put together anthologies for those of you who are interested in that, and also how to go about if you want to donate the proceeds or part of the proceeds to a charity. I know a lot of people are curious about that, but I think it's not quite as simple as you might think. So we'll be asking them about it. But our guests are Veronica Scott and Pauline B. Jones. Veronica's been on the show before, and they both write science fiction romance. And hello, UPS man, thank you for ringing the doorbell. And I guess that I will pass it over to you now for the introduction that just got so kindly interrupted by my package delivery. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves, since I was cut short, and you guys know more about yourselves than I do, so please tell us about how you got into writing and publishing and these anthologies.
Want to go first, Pauline?
Yeah, you go first.
Oh, okay, I'll go first.
Oh, sorry.
One of us will go first. Well, I've been writing science fiction kind of all my life since I was age 7, but I've been published since 2012. I self-published my Sci-Fi Romance, and I have something like 27 books now, which sort of amazes me. I didn't realize I was going to write so many, but I'm still busy writing, you know. And as far as the Pets in Space, one day, as I recall, one day in Facebook, a group of us were talking about fun ideas, and somebody said, it might have been Pauline, that it would be fun to do a set of stories with pets, you know, kind of like Lassie in Space, but with sci-fi pets and romance. And then she and I talked about it afterwards, and we decided it was a really good idea, and we wanted to follow up on it. So Pauline, take it away.
I've been writing longer than I care to admit in public. I'm hiding my gray hair under this hat. But I have over 30 books in print. I accidentally fell into writing sci-fi. My science high school teacher would probably tell you I was writing science fiction then, but I officially started writing it in about 2006, and I fell in love with it. I love making up my science fiction, I will admit. And Pets in Space, yeah, Jean, I think she pushed it because I was kind of like, oh, I can't do an anthology. Who am I to do an anthology? But yeah, we just did it, and it was really fun, and so we decided to keep doing it.
Pauline and I kind of have the same brain. It's almost eerie. We're like sisters, but we're not. But yeah, we're always talking each other off of the cliff or off of the windowsill. You know, we have a great fun partnership. So that's part of it. Yeah,
that keeps me going.
Helps a lot when you're putting things together and kind of long hours. We should say these are all original fiction, right? It's not just some authors taking some old short stories and putting them together. So how did you approach people? I don't think you guys did a call for submissions, did you?
No, it's invitation only. So the first year we kind of reached out to people. You know, I interview science fiction romance authors all the time for USA Today, Happy Ever After blog. And so we reached out to a combination of authors in the science fiction romance brigade on Facebook that we knew, and several that I had interviewed, because we wanted to have a mix. You know, we wanted to have some big headliner kind of people, and then if we can, we try to have an author or two that's sort of new and give them a push by being in the Pets in Space. So I reached out to Susan Smith, S.E. Smith. She's like our godmother, I would say, almost, because I had interviewed her for USA Today, and I thought she might be interested in writing a pet story, and lucky for us, she was. So she has been with us all 3 years, and this year she wrote a full, complete novel even.
One of the reasons why she came aboard was because of our charity, Hero Dogs. She really believed in that because she was way overbooked, and she liked Veronica.
We had a good relationship because I had interviewed her a couple times.
Yeah.
And we picked hero dogs because especially that first year, all of us had some connection to the military or to veterans. In fact, one of our authors, sorry, I don't know why it's doing this. One of our authors was Susan Grant the first 2 years, and she's actually a former pilot, Air Force pilot. So we wanted a charity that supported veterans, and Hero Dogs seemed like a really good one to us. We wanted one where we could make a difference with our little donation, not some giant charity that would say, oh, thank you for your pennies, but one where we would feel like we had really helped them and they would feel that we had done, good service for them. So
cool.
Happy relationship.
Yeah. All right. So on the subject of when you're putting together an anthology like this, I believe you mentioned that this was all original stuff that was written for the anthology, right?
Yep.
Yep.
There was just one in 3 years. We had one case where an author didn't completely understand the guidelines, I guess, and sort of rewrote an existing story, but we were careful to point that out in the material for that year, otherwise all original.
All right. Now, when you're putting this sort of thing together, do you prefer a standalone story specifically for this, or do people sometimes put in stuff that ties into a larger series but was written for the anthology?
It's really better for them if they write a connected story. Mm-hmm. I found that out because I didn't. And you don't get as much lift from readers for your time of putting in to have it in the anthology if you don't have more, have some kind of connection to your other story.
And also we find it's good to have a mix. We have Susan Smith has many different series going. I have a couple of series. Pauline has series, and we find that it helps to have some stories that readers are avid to have, like Anna Hackett gave us the Galactic Gladiator story, which people are excited about. And then some authors are writing, a standalone. It may become a series later, but it's a standalone. So we try to make it a mix.
Yeah. Okay, so my question for you too is, when you're compiling these anthologies, do you predominantly prefer books to be in the same genre? Because I know I heard you mention the sci-fi romance, or have you ever mixed any different genres together before?
Not in this. It's pets in space. It's sci-fi romance. Now, there's a mix of subgenres all the time, but no.
Well, and we also thought, especially the first year, we thought, this might be a way to get people who might not read science fiction romance, but they might like the idea of pets, and it might ease them into science fiction romance. I don't know that happened very much, but it was our thought initially.
I feel like it takes a special kind of reader to jump into the sci-fi romance.
Well, the thing that we didn't really think about is a little humorous. The first year, it turns out that pets can have multiple meanings depending what genre you're in. So, So we had some people that thought we were writing a whole lot of steamy other stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I use Lassie for my example. Lassie's a nice G-rated pet.
Dog.
Yeah. Not the BDSM pets, no.
Yeah, see, I would have been oblivious too.
I was too.
Were. And then we started getting, comments. It's like, oh, not those pets.
Well, you mentioned why you chose the Hero Dogs charity. Could you talk about what is involved when you want to give part of the proceeds to a charity? I've heard that you should get permission from them, and you shouldn't just say oh, hey, Humane Society, they're getting 10% because maybe the charity doesn't want to be associated with something. So how do you check with them and see if it's okay?
Well, we emailed them and asked for permission, and we engaged in a written agreement with them about how everything would work. Their normal agreement didn't work perfectly for us because of the way, you get paid royalties for a book.
Right.
So we had to modify it so that, the payment was due after we actually got the money.
Yeah. Fortunately, I wrote contracts at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for years. So, it wasn't too hard to whip up a little addendum that we could add to their standard contract. But it is a good point that you raised. You don't want to just assume that a charity is going to be excited about having you donate money to them, because you may not be in alignment with with their goals or with their other sponsors, or, so it's really wise to reach out to the charity first, find out if they have a contract, which our charity did, and, make sure that everybody's aligned. If you suddenly go out there on social media, oh, we're supporting the XYZ charity, and they've never heard of you. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, I can hear
We're
you.
still here.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
My computer's doing its thing tonight. Go ahead, Pauline.
No, I was going to say that every year we made sure to ask permission again. And they've been really wonderful. They sent us a thank you letter with everybody signing it. They're a pretty small group. They don't have like a dedicated social media person, but we're just have been really excited about what they do. And the first year, Lori Green, one of our authors, actually also sponsored her own dog. And so when her dog graduated and was paired with a veteran, they sent us a picture of it. It's really sweet. We really love working with them.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about wanting a charity that was small enough that our little group, our little effort could really do some good for them and have a concrete, visible effect. So, and it's good having a contract because just recently we found out that Hero Dogs is having a personnel change, a small personnel change. And that could have been a problem if we didn't have a written contract. What if that person left and the newcomer didn't know anything about it? And so, yeah, it's just always better to have something, that ties both parties. The other thing I was going to say is because of the charity and the nature of the charity, we've consciously tried to keep the anthology steaminess or heat or sexy scenes level lower than we might otherwise, because we didn't want to do anything that might inadvertently embarrass the charity. So we have put a little bit of limit on our authors. You go this far, but not that far.
I was actually going to ask you, for those who are considering maybe doing romance, and we all know the man chest covers sell, was that ever a concern? Because I know I was wondering, are you guys going to do that? Are you going to have like a dog in space? Or, what are you going to do?
The first year we really thought about a lot of different options, and our cover artist is Fiona Jade. I work with her all the time on my covers, so she and I do the cover. And we tried a lot of things. We tried having little animal footprints, and we tried having, it just was better to go with what was selling in the romance genre at the time. And this year we decided to get steamier and have the sexy, abs. The gentleman with the sexy abs on the cover.
The abs seem to be very popular.
Yes. Although, our cover model the first 2 years, Vikas, he's a lovely, lovely person. Some of us have met him at different conferences and things. And so we really enjoyed having him on the first two covers, but we felt like this year the trend in science fiction romance had really moved to the sexier take. So with Fiona, we did a different cover this year.
I think it's not a bad idea if there is going to be sex inside the book to kind of put a cover on the outside that's hinting that maybe it's not all just fluffy creatures.
I don't know. Last year's, every time I looked at last year's cover, I just felt like the woman was telling him she was pregnant. It was just, I don't know. It didn't convey the earlier sexy times to me. It was more the sweet after. Anyway, so yeah, I like this cover a lot.
All right. Well, thank you for clarifying what you should do if you want to give something to a charity, because I've actually seen, not so much lately, but in the past, a lot of indie authors using it kind of as a marketing gimmick. And you kind of wonder, are these people actually going to give any money? Do they have an agreement? Or are they just like, maybe I can sell more books if people think I'm, donating money?
Yeah, no, that was a key part of it for Pauline and me, and it continues to be, is the charity and the importance of doing this effort for the charity. And every year we try to talk to the authors about, this is why we're doing it. We're not doing it to make a list. We're not doing it for this or that. The primary goal is to benefit the charity. And then after that, we have other goals. But yeah, and those were some of our concerns that you just mentioned exactly. We didn't want it to seem like it was just marketing. It's our effort.
Yeah, along the same lines, I worked with Story Bundle. I've worked with Story Bundle many times, and they give part of their earnings to charity. And early on, when it was a relatively new thing, we actually got some emails from people who were annoyed that we were using a charity to get sales. So do you find that there's ever really been any stigma attached to this? Like you talk about, it's your concern that you don't put that point across, but have people sort of taken it the wrong way and felt like this was an inappropriate thing to do?
I don't think we have really that much. Mostly.
No, I don't remember it. I think because we kind of built it into the fabric of what we do. I mean, like Pauline said, Lori actually adopted one of the dogs and paid for it to be raised. We've tried to share their videos and their Facebook page, and we've tried to make it clear that we have a connection, that it's not just, we're going to support this charity that we picked at random. It's meaningful to us.
Yeah. And one of the things we do is blog every year about the charity so that people can read about our connection. And like the first year I blogged about my father, who was a veteran of both World War II and the Korean War. And the second year I blogged about my uncle who was killed in World War II. And just it really matters. One of the reasons we like Hero Dogs so much is because it is about pets saving people, saving people who have given so much. And so, it's very serious for us. We get annoyed if our authors don't appreciate that that's our very first goal.
Right.
But that's why we're there. I mean, we were really fortunate that we hit the USA Today last year, but I was more interested, myself and Jean, we're more interested in the money that we were going to donate. And, we always want to make sure that our charity is helped, because that's why we got into this. We don't really make that much money from all of this. It's really, I don't think I make any actually, but it's, for me,
a little. We make a little, but
I make a little.
But we've made good donations to the charity.
Our authors make some money. We make sure our authors make money, but
we do have expenses for, the cover and the public relations and But we've donated over $4,000 in the first 2 years to them. And for a small charity, that's a nice, chunk. They were pretty surprised the first year. I don't think they really thought they were going to actually make any money. And we sent them this really nice check. They were a little surprised.
Nice. So let me ask you guys a question. How do you determine the order of books in an anthology that you guys do? I mean, have you ever encountered resistance from an author who says they don't like their placement within the mix there?
No, we do it by their platform, their social media platform, and S.E. Smith, our lead author, is clearly, she brings a lot of readers to the anthology, so it goes by that pretty much. And I don't remember anybody complaining about where they were. We've been really lucky in the authors that have worked with us.
Yeah, of course we do it. We invite the people we'd like to have with us, so we are able to manage our environment. That we have people that we enjoy collaborating with, and try to make it as fun a process as we can while we're doing the work. But we list them pretty much. S.E. Smith is a New York Times and USA Today bestseller, so she's the headliner. And then if other people have equal quote rank, then they might come next. Pauline and I are in the middle somewhere. And then
probably I would be further down if it wasn't for the fact that I put it all together.
That's right. There's got to be some benefit to being part of the organizers.
Well, and that matters to us too, is that our authors get some benefit from it, and by having the exposure to other, to new readers, we don't want them to not have any benefit from it. We always hope that they come out of it ahead too, for the work that they put in and for these wonderful stories that we get.
Yeah.
I think one thing that authors or editors may find daunting, especially with their first anthology, is figuring out who's going to get paid. Like, are you going to pay % per story up front? Or are you going to share the royalties? What have you guys found is working well for you, and how much of a financial burden is it to do all the bookkeeping?
It's a pain. I do it. Every time I do it, I vow I'll never do it again. But everybody gets paid equally. I make the same share as everybody in the anthology. It's just a split. If we have 11 authors, we pay Hero Dogs first, then we take out our expenses, and then we pay our authors. And
Pauline At one point we missed, we were talking with the charity. Pauline makes the payment to the charities. I mean, so just as part of her dispersing all the funds, she handles that.
Yeah.
So the rest of us don't take a tax deduction because we didn't personally hand those funds over, but it's just the simplest way to manage what we've got going. So, yeah.
And I have issued receipts to people who paid more. Mm-hmm. To Hero Dogs. If they donated extra, when I pay them, I make a note of that this includes, this deduction. And all the books are available to any author if they want to look at them. I keep the spreadsheets in a Dropbox folder, and it's available to anybody who wants to see it. I'm very careful.
And we do have a contract. Each year we've modified our contract with the authors. Just new stuff we didn't think about happens every year. So we add a few more paragraphs here and there. But I kind of cringe when I see groups of authors on Facebook talking about, oh, let's do an anthology, because you could be 11 of the best friends in the world, but things happen. And it's better to have some advanced understanding of, this is how this will work, and this is how that will work, and here's the deadlines. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a contracts person, but I just feel better having at least some advanced written down understanding.
That makes a lot of sense. And of course, that's how a traditional publisher, professional editor would run an anthology. Of course, it'd be the contracts and such.
Well, it is a small business for us. I mean, we haven't formalized it, but Jean and I have an agreement. Mm-hmm. And we're very careful about how we run it because we are publishers of this anthology. And so we act as publishers, not as, good buddies to everybody. I mean, if there's a problem, we do remind someone that they did sign a contract and that this is what they agreed to. It's a learning experience for everybody.
Yeah, we have to remind people occasionally that, it's a business. Pauline and I are the co-managers, and we have to approve, especially if you're going to ask our public relations person to go off and do some task that she's then going to want to bill for. We have to approve it first because it's all coming out of the royalties. So, yeah.
And do you guys leave the anthologies up for just a set amount of time so that you're not paying out royalties 5 years from now?
Yes. When it drops below a certain level where the payout is ridiculous for 11 people, I think it's like $15 or something, then we take it off sale.
In the contract, we only have the rights for so long, and
for 6 months or so.
6 months, yeah, and then the rights fully revert to the authors. We take the anthology off of sale, and usually the authors end up issuing the stories on their own later.
It was interesting to me a couple years ago. I did one of these. They were trying to make the USA Today list with my pen name. And I wondered, is anybody going to buy it was a novella, kind of the same thing. You're writing an original story for the anthology in the hopes that more people will, want to buy it. If they've read it before, who wants to buy it? But I was interested that a lot of people bought the anthology, but then more people, 6 months later or whatever, a surprising number of people also bought it when I put it up at $2.99. So I think it's a kind of a win-win for authors, whereas they might think, that's a throwaway story because I'm never going to make any money on my own on it. So I just wanted to put that out there for folks.
I think our authors have done pretty well. And quite a few of us have put up the stories separately later. And I know my novellas that I did for the first two, they've sold. So.
Well, and you can use them as a newsletter freebie or it expands your backlist. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll see people go back and buy my stories, when they've been introduced to my anthology, my series, they'll go back and pick up the smaller stories and everything. So it's definitely a win-win.
Well, a couple times we've had authors that wrote a short story for the anthology, and then later they've actually turned it into a longer book. Or, I think Lori's even thinking about making a series out of hers. So it's kind of a fun thing. It's an interesting way to get yourself out of your normal routine of writing your normal novels and try something a little different.
Well, and the requirement for a pet, and not just a pet that you pat sometimes, but the pet to be an integral part of the story is a very creative spur. I mean, it's made me step outside my comfort zone as a writer to try to think of, how a pet would actually matter to a plot and how it could be important. I don't know if you felt that, Lindsay, or if you were already doing that, but
I wasn't in that series. I have some dogs that have come up in my other stuff, and it's really fun. The readers always really seem to enjoy a pet, because who doesn't have pets, right?
Right.
But it can be a challenge. Like if I blow up the spaceship, okay, we have to make sure the dog got off. Or there's a 1-star average, and nobody's going to buy for
Oh yeah, the pet has to live. No,
kill the people, save the pet.
Right.
Well, let's swing into some marketing questions, because I think people are going to wonder. You mentioned, I think you hit the USA Today list 1 year, even though it's not maybe your primary goal. So, I mean, just in theory, having all these authors involved is going to be really powerful. I assume kind of the basis is everybody emails their list. What all are you guys doing for the launch? And I know you've had a pre-order up for a while too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, you work with Narelle closely, more closely than I do. Pauline, you want to talk about all the stuff you have going?
Well, we hired Get My Book Out There the first year on the recommendation of Essie Smith, and she's been really wonderful to work with. She seems to have an instinct for how the market's changing and what kind of things. The first year, we all wrote a lot of blog posts and, did our newsletters and did posts. And as the rules in social media and the market has changed, we've adapted that to where I think we wrote 3 this year. And I think the first year we wrote 9.
Some huge number of blogs. Oh my God.
Man, I felt drained of words.
Yeah.
But the first year we had 2 hurricanes.
Oh yeah.
And a contentious election.
Yeah, going on.
And actually, for me personally, it was pretty traumatic because both my parents died about 6 weeks, maybe 5 weeks before the release. They were in a car accident. So it was a year that it was like, I'm never doing this again. We're done. And then as soon as it was over, I was like, that was so great. Let's do it again.
So Narelle Todd, she does a lot of research, as Pauline was saying, and she is one of those people that she'll do like 15 Facebook ads, and she'll do A/B, is this better, is that better? Oh, we're going to go segment to this portion of the market. So she does all of that kind of thing, and each year we put aside a bigger and bigger budget for her to use for doing promo, and we pay that, out of the proceeds after the charity gets paid. So she's a huge factor in our success, I think, because she really lays it out for us. She keeps us moving. She reminds us this due, that's due, and she's out there doing.
She seems to have an instinct for what people are comfortable with, because she got me to start trying doing some Facebook Live, which I am actually super shy, and so I put a hat on, and I haven't done one for about a year, but Dead Author Live, because Goodreads said I died in 1999, so I got to make a play on that I'm the dead author still writing, and it helps for me to be a little bit goofy and dead.
And Narelle keeps us realistic too, because that we have moments when we get delusions of grandeur, and she'll say, well, if you wanted to buy an ad in that magazine, that would cost you more money than you've made all 3 years. So she helps us budget what we can really afford that will have the most impact on the sales, and we really focus on the first 30 days. That's when we get the majority of the sales with the pre-orders, and that's when we donate the money to the charities. So makes it manageable that we're really focused for 30 days.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it'd be profoundly helpful to have somebody who really knows the stuff and who's steeped in advertising to guide you along, because you can't always trust that somebody in the anthology is going to have that sort of know-how. All right, so you talk about how this is a series of anthologies and it's by invite only. So how do you like to handle bringing back people from previous anthologies versus bringing in new people?
Jean kind of supervises author selection.
Yeah, I kind of have a list in my head all the time of like quote unquote headliners, people that I would dearly love to have, like Anna Hackett and, and Ruby Lyons Drake. And there was some people I've actually conversed with them 2 or 3 years in a row and said, gosh, we'd love to have you write a pet story for us if you think you can work it into your schedule. And sometimes with the really busy authors, it takes them 2 years to be at the point where they're like, okay, yeah, I can do you a 10,000 word pet story this year, which is kind of what Anna said about the Galactic Gladiators. So I keep a thing going in my head, of, okay, well, I wanted to ask this person and that person. And we like to have some different names each year, to keep variety, bring in some new series. And people also, they drop out, they've done their thing for a year or two and they really want to focus on something else. They're a little burned out on all the PR. So it's kind of a constantly moving target, who's going to be in, who's not going to be in. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get requests. People want to find out how they can submit to us, and we explain it's invitation only, and we try to prioritize, because of the charity, we try to prioritize, for the most part, authors that will bring already a good readership with them and have a big social media presence that we can leverage.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it would be a balance, because you have to, it seems like if you always use the same people, you wouldn't get fresh blood very often.
Right.
It seems like fresh blood in the anthology brings in fresh audience, and I think that probably is valuable, but also recognizable names. I don't know. It seems like it'd be a tricky balance to maintain.
Well, it is, but it's one of the things that I'm good at. Networking is like my secret superpower. That's one of the things that I did a lot of at the Jet Propulsion Lab. So I just took that whole skill set and moved it over into this, and it's fun. It's like putting together a puzzle. So enjoy it. But we definitely try to change up the mix every year.
All right. So have you ever encouraged brand new authors to join the anthologies, or would you recommend that they wait and try and build up a following before approaching them?
I think with anthologies, a key thing is to identify first, what is your goal? Ours is to support the charity, so we go more in the direction of established authors. Now, if you were doing an anthology to try to make a list, if that was really your key thing, then you might select a different set of authors. And we have done other anthologies or projects where, it was a mix, and people that had never written a story before came into the anthology, and that was fine because we were just wanting to put out a science fiction romance anthology. First, you have to know what is your primary purpose in doing this set of books and putting it together.
Well, you also need to understand the writing business a little bit. And we were all new authors at one time, and how much you didn't know when you finally know what you know. And so we try to make sure, though, we get people who actually understand what a contract is, and, that you have to actually follow it and follow the terms of the contract.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people want to be in. You get requests all the time, and it's really hard because you want to bring people in and you see people interested, but we have to have a certain amount of a business attitude so that we can be successful for our charity. It's not just about great stories, because there's lots of great stories, but we want to help our charity. And as Jean said, they have to understand that it isn't just about, this other thing over here. It really is about that for us. So finding stories isn't that hard. Finding, people who are willing to give us enough time to try to make a success of it, that's a lot harder, who even understand what it takes. And I've had to learn too, as we've gone along, to understand what's really involved here. I came into it I thought I knew a lot, and I do know some things, but I've learned a lot.
Oh yeah.
Gone along.
Me too. And the other thing too, we're both full-time science fiction romance authors. That's our thing. And, if we had more than about 11 stories, especially if we had a bunch of stories that needed heavy, heavy editing, we don't have time for that.
We don't.
We don't. Mm-mm.
People don't always understand that. I mean, I remember from my days as a new author, I didn't understand editing either. I'm old enough to have actually worked with some traditional publishers. So I feel like that gives me a little bit more of a background in what to be a publisher. But it's really hard. You find yourself thinking, oh my gosh, I've become the evil publisher. We really don't want to be that.
Yeah, we've said that to each other a couple times in the past few years. Yeah, it's, oh my God, we've turned into a publisher.
Wear a witch hat for today. But I'm sure there are some people who think I have turned witchy, and I feel bad about that. But
well, we trade off. We each, like I said earlier, we each try to do our share of the difficult conversations and emails and handling situations. So we're a team.
And if you add more people, it becomes very unwieldy. You know, those big, huge and box sets on Amazon for 99 cents are very appealing to readers, but that's not what we're doing here. We're actually, it's a little bit old school publishing because we're actually trying to have original, well-written stories and keep it within a manageable amount so that everybody benefits, that they have a decent shot of people actually reading the whole anthology.
Which is trying their story.
Yeah, trying their story.
So we do usually have a couple of authors that don't have as comprehensive a backlist or haven't written science fiction romance maybe, but they've written fantasy. And I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but we really try to make it a mix.
Yeah. I'm excited about this year. I feel like it's probably the distillation of all we've learned from the other anthologies that has come together with just a really wonderful mix of authors and stories. I feel really fortunate.
It's good that you mentioned that it is a lot of work to take the role of editor and put this together, because I want to do a themed anthology every year at some point myself, but I'm always like, well, that would just have to be those months I'm not going to write a novel, and I'd probably still want to hire someone, you know, to like read the slush pile if I went that route, or, you know, to help with the editing chores. So it's a little daunting, but I can see where I know a lot of authors like find it appealing to take on that publisher role, and like you get to pick your theme. That's pretty fun. Like how many pets in space sci-fi romances are there? I'm sure there's a few out there, but it's probably hard for someone to find if they're looking for that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's not too many. We looked into it before we dove in the first year. It's
mostly color books.
Yeah.
There's mostly color books out there.
My little Tribble would be great to color.
Yeah.
It's not a triple, but it's close.
It is.
One year we did do a color book of our pets, but it's actually harder than you would think to put together a color book.
I imagine it would be hard to sell.
Yeah, it hasn't sold very many.
Well, the thing about the editing, in our contract, we require the work to have been professionally edited, but I've been in an anthology or two where there really wasn't an understanding about the editing, and I don't want to be embarrassed by the stories that my story is surrounded by. So it's really important to me now that I'm further along in my career and understand some things, like Pauline said, you learn more. You know, it's really important to me to have my story be one of 11 well-edited stories, that we aren't going to get 1-star reviews because, you know, common mistakes were made or whatever. So, but it's very, Pets in Space is very time consuming. Each year Pauline and I say, oh my God, we're not doing this again. And then each year we decide we are.
I think you guys may be one of the first people I've talked to that said they hired a PR person and it was good, like a good experience. I feel like so many people say, well, it was really expensive and I don't think it really helped book sales. Could you talk a little bit about what these, well, Narelle, I don't know if she wants to be mentioned or not, what the organization is doing that you found it helpful and that you're continuing to use them?
Well, she had, when S.E. Smith recommended her, she had helped steer several authors onto the bestseller list with just her promotion plan. And it doesn't work exactly the same with us because it's like herding cats, not just one author. But just the know-how that she had about, ads and people's personalities and how to figure out, what you can do and what you're good at so that you can tap into your own strengths and not. I think that when you do it by yourself without someone who knows anything, you just throw things at the wall and hope they work. Or you listen to people talk about how this one great thing worked for for them, and then it doesn't work for you because you don't have the right temperament or whatever, or that one big thing has already become not that great anymore.
Right. And she,
yeah.
since it's her profession and that's what she does, you know, she keeps up on the current trends. Like Pauline is saying, she doesn't rely on the same old. She has constantly new ideas, and, you know, there's things that I'll say, well, okay, that really doesn't light my fire, but I can see that would attract the younger generation of readers. So please go for it.
Yeah.
And that, you know, she's standing outside the stories and outside the science fiction part of it. And she's more in the business part of it. And so she suggested stuff to us sometimes that we don't approve. We say, no, you know, that really doesn't work for our audience that we're striving for. But the important thing is she suggests it, and we can at least think about it, consider it. So I think that's been a huge key to success for us, because she brings that whole other element that it's not our business specifically, it's hers. Yeah, but yeah, how do I put this tactfully? She's professional, and her fees are professional, and it's all part of our budget. It's not cheap, not free.
Right.
Yeah.
And she actually came on, I want to say back in April, or so she was there for months long before the release. I guess I think of authors going like, okay, my launch is next week, I should get a PR person. Do you find that this is typical, or is this kind of atypical of what's out there?
I don't think she's typical of anybody I've read about. I mean, she works with us, Gina and I, behind the scenes long before she goes onto the Facebook group with a plan. We work out the plan, we approve it, we approve the timeline, and then she presents it to our group of authors. And she's a reader. She's a passionate reader of science fiction romance too. So she also understands that from a reader's perspective. And the first time she did come on at the last minute, she came on in August, and it was a scramble to get it in place, especially with everything that went on.
Right.
But I mean, we still did really well. It was interesting because I'm the keeper of the books. I see our sales and where the spread is month to month. And last year, the sales came early. That's why we hit the list. They kind of bunched around, which we weren't trying to make a list. We were trying to maximize our donation.
Mm-hmm.
I think none of us actually thought we had hit. We were just like, well, whatever, you know.
That's exciting.
And there was another hurricane last year. I mean, it was like every year there's some big thing going on that's just kind of hilarious that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
I think Florida, wasn't it? And Houston. Yeah, Houston was being flooded. And so we're just kind of like, whatever. And so it was a happy thing. But again, it's, you know, it's our charity that is our focus. We're not a list hitting machine.
But we work with her all year. I mean, it's like Pauline said, the three of us are constantly Facebooking back and forth and, you know, having suggestions. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But there's a set period of time where she's really almost full time on Pets in Space. And that's probably a couple months, the month before and the month during. And we're very strongly her focus. And that's kind of the part we're paying for, you know? So, yeah. But there's a lot of groundwork. And now, of course, this is the third year. So we're building on stuff we did the second year. That helps too. We didn't have to start from scratch.
I'm curious, you mentioned that you hit the list, so obviously you guys are wide in all the stores. Have you gone back and forth and wrestled with, like, should we go exclusive to Amazon and try to get extra money from page reads? Or is this just working well and you're sticking with it?
Well, last year we thought about that, but we hadn't built it into the contract. And so we couldn't do it. You know, we don't use the rights unless we have a contractual right to do it. This year we built it in the contract as an option. I honestly don't know. We might act, you know, that's why the contract is a little bit different. We have that in case we do put it into KU, we have 3 months to keep it there. But I don't know, you know, the market has been so interesting.
Yes.
That we're not going to decide till we're right there. But we did leave that option open to take it down wide at some point and put it into KU just to make some more money for our authors, if possible.
Well, we like to be wide in the beginning, partly too, because between all of us, we have readers on all these platforms, and you know, we want to be fair to all the readers of all the authors. So
Now, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But one thing I want to say is, because you're doing this wide, and you know, as you say, you have fans across all of them. Do you find that certain retailers have greater success with anthologies than others?
We did really well with Nook last year. It was our second best retailer, which was kind of a surprise because it's really hard to get in touch with anybody. I had a contact at Apple, and we tried, you know, doing an exclusive pre-order with them for a while, and we didn't really get a lot of traction there. But once we, you know, went wide with the pre-order, when our Nook sales dumped, it was really nice. I mean, they were our second best retailer.
mm-hmm.
All right, so I know anthologies are best represented by 3D covers, you know, which depict all the titles in the set. Smashwords, for instance, doesn't allow the 3D covers. So does that mean you have to contact each retailer individually in order to get the cover you want displayed?
We don't do a 3D cover. We just do last year we did a print book, and that was as 3D as we got. but our stories don't have their own covers. We just have one cover. So in a box set, you would have different covers that you wanted to. But these, especially last year, our stories were all short stories, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that's true. We ended up with a couple novels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of went overboard. Well, I got a little carried away. I just couldn't do it in less than 40,000 words. And then Susan Smith wrote an entire novel, like 65,000 words or something.
Yeah, and everybody hit our 25K limit. I do that with air quotes because it's an ebook. The first 2 years, my stories were shorter, so I feel like I saved up words to use this year. So mine went a little over too, but you know, readers like fully fleshed out stories, and I feel like we have that this year. All the stories are complete and whole and satisfying, in my opinion, for what it's worth.
Now I feel like a slacker because mine was only 20,000 words. I'm like, wait, people were writing novels? What happened?
I think yours came in at 25, close to 25K too. So
it's
when
possible.
I pulled it in.
I tried to write a short story, you know, and you know what happens when you try to write short stories.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. It didn't end up being too short.
Words happen.
They did,
well, especially with romance, you have to give them time to get to know each other. Like I actually just did, I think, a kiss at the end of this one because I felt it was too soon for them to have happy times on the page. But not that other people can't do it, but for me, that was like too fast paced to get to that point. So I feel like with romance, you have to care first about the characters getting together before, if they're just there on page 5, you know, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that happened to me the first year. They got as far as a kiss and that was it. Because there weren't enough words for me. That's probably partly why I did so many extra words this year. I just had to
mine always only kiss, so so don't feel like you're left out with the kiss.
All right, good. Not the only one.
No, we have a mix. We just don't get too steamy because of the charity,
So you guys did a pretty long pre-order. I think I want to say it went up in July and released in October. What is the strategy just to kind of start accumulating sales well before the launch week?
Well, I think for us it was to capture sales when we did the cover release. I mean, especially with Sci-Fi Romance, you're struggling to keep your audience anyway. And because our goal is our charity, it didn't matter if we diluted our release a little bit with pre-orders because those were sales we already captured. We did pretty good today anyway. I think we were at 3,700 pre-orders and we're already past 4K for the day. So I feel good about the money that we're raising for Hero Dogs. I feel like they're probably accumulating as I'm sitting here, I hope.
I hope so.
Well,
we were
You mean you're not
5.
refreshing constantly while you're talking to
I
us?
was, but
it
now.
is launch day. We should mention. I don't know if we mentioned that, but this is your launch day.
I might have been obsessively watching all day, maybe.
Yeah, I was watching where we ranked in the sci-fi romance, the hot new releases in the top 100. And we got it to be number 5 the last time I looked. So that was satisfying. I don't know that we can go ahead of Ruby Dixon, though. Ruby Dixon's a tough nut to crack.
Well, but it was a full price book and not in Kindle Unlimited, and every other book in the top 10 is KU. So I feel pretty good about it. How things have gone today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your pricing strategy. You guys are going for $4.99, which can be at the high end for indie authors, but it sounds like I don't know if anybody told me the actual final page total or word count, but it sounds like a really meaty, like people are getting their money's worth. How did you decide the price?
Well, when we realized that Susan Smith, S.E. Smith, was going to have a full novel and the word count started coming in, I'm like, we cannot charge $3.99 for this. We have to charge $4.99. It is 112,000 words, maybe, or I know it. Kindle has it as 23 hours and 45 minutes of reading for $4.99. So I feel like that's really a deal that readers are getting, and
Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. This is last year's. Can you see? This is last year's paperback. We didn't do a paperback this year. It would have been how much big? Yeah.
It was.
It's probably like 200,000 or 300,000 words, I would guess. Like a big
if I shrunk,
that was last year.
If I shrunk the font down to the bottom font that Vellum would let me do, it was still over 900 pages. And they wouldn't, people would need a magnifying glass to read it. And Amazon wouldn't let me publish it. You have to be under 820, I think, to even publish a paperback.
Although people are asking us for the paperback, and we just have to tell them we can't. This year it wasn't practical. So.
Last year, literally, I could have done weightlifting with.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
It's astounding. Like particularly when you primarily are working with ebooks, it's astounding once you finally. I actually have one, probably visible in the shot over there. I finally get a copy of one that's been for sale for years. I'm like, holy cow, this is a doorstop.
Yeah.
You have to hold it open, and then turn the pages.
Make sure it's readable in the gutter.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, and just to finish out on the price, I mean, Susan Smith and Narelle Todd both encouraged us to be brave and go up that extra dollar and, try to maximize for the charity. So I think it's worked out okay.
And we had Ruby and Anna. I mean, these are all top-selling authors who deserve to have their books sell for a decent.
That one review today called us goddesses of sci-fi romance.
Yeah.
I love it.
Fantastic.
Have you read that one yet?
That was awesome.
Oh my gosh, that's the best review ever. I'm gonna keep that one. Yeah.
All right. So one question I have here, and it seems like the answer is yes. So from what we've heard is, do you pay much attention to rankings? Like you were saying that you're sort of refreshing and seeing how it goes. So since I know the answer to that question is yes, let me rephrase and say, do you feel like being at the top of a subgenre list helps to keep sales going, or is it just sort of a feather in your hat?
It used to keep sales going. I think you do get some follow-on from that. I think we all know in the good old days that it used to carry you for about a month. And I like it because it does give us visibility to be on a bestseller list, and we can use it in our promo and say, yeah, look, we did this. But it doesn't bring the lift, the continuous lift. I mean, there's definitely a cliff, and it's not just at Amazon, it's at all the retailers. They really fall off very quickly.
And there's so
which
many
is sad.
All the time.
Yeah.
So,
New.
yeah, things change.
All right, I have a question for you. Have you, of all the times you've done this now, have you encountered any retailers that, let's say, have learned that you plan on donating all the profits to charities and offered you any incentives, like, hey, we'll go ahead and give you a little bit of extra, like, space at the top of the page, or put some stars or something to bring the attention to it? I was wondering if any incentives exist for giving your profits to charity. Probably not, but I thought I'd ask.
And we have authors that do get incentives from like Nook and places, and from Apple, but when they've asked, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's the genre. I don't know. They just don't find it that profitable, but no, I wish they'd start coming to us.
Nope, we have to do it all ourselves.
We do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
I am curious because you mentioned that Barnes & Noble was like your second bestseller. I know about 4 years ago, I was looking at going wide with Ruby Maybe, and I ended up going back to Kindle Unlimited, KDP Select with the pen name, just because at the time there really wasn't even a sci-fi romance category that you could like drill down to. And I've noticed that there's a lot more categories now on both Kobo and Nook. Have you guys been checking out, I don't know, I guess, is it getting easier, I should ask, to sell maybe like something niche like the sci-fi romance on these other sites?
No, I wish I could say yes. I mean, I've been wide for 5-6 years. I had my sci-fi in Select when my rights to my book suddenly reverted to me when the publishers was closed. And I had fortunately self-published one book, so I knew what to do, but it was like a different world. I mean, it was so easy to put them in Select and just rack up sales, and they rode for several months just for me uploading them. I hadn't done anything. But now I think it's a different world, and I understand why people stay in Kindle because it's a lot easier. I honestly stay wide because it's like a web out there to pull all my titles in now. I wouldn't even know how to do it because I'm in some odd places. Like I was in Overdrive early with a place called Untreed Reads. That was the only way for me to get into Overdrive. And so pulling those books out would be really hard. So have I considered going into KU? I have, but I don't know. I just haven't. I just stay wide.
Well, I do a new releases report every week on sci-fi, paranormal, and fantasy. And what I see is the sci-fi romances the majority of them are Kindle Unlimited. I'm starting to see more that are moving out into the other platforms as well. But every week there's a good percentage that are only in KU. So.
Well, and look at the bestseller list. I mean, I was looking at the top 20 today, and 2 or 3 books in each category were not KU. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's really been interesting to watch over the years that I do this report. It used to be that a book by someone who wasn't KU would get up in the top 10 and stay there. And now sometimes authors that I would expect to be in the top 5 don't even get to the top 5 because KU's just got it blocked. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's that's kind of why I've gone into doing the releases, maybe the first 6 or 9 months in KDP Select, and then going wide once the steam wears off. It's hard to compete since the borrows count as sales as far as Amazon's concerned, even though a $5 sale should count as more than a borrow that was one of 30 for your $10 that month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand why people do it. I think part of it is just laziness because it'd be too much effort to unwide myself now, but and if I have a series that's wide already, to have it, have one book suddenly be in Select, I just can't do that.
I feel safer being out on many platforms. I just makes me nervous, the idea of having all my books on one platform. I like being wide, so I leave mine wide.
Yeah, and I would say that I've really noticed actually, and even though we're always hearing about the demise of Barnes & Noble, that, they've been reaching out to some indie authors and featuring them. Kobo is always really good about grabbing people. I know Joe has got like a rep at iTunes. And so it's like, I feel like if you're, I mean, it's fine to do KDP Select and KU. Like I said, I do it because I make so much from the page reads. It's like, why would I throw that money away?
Yeah.
But they are looking for people to promote, and maybe right now, because there are so many fewer, yes, that's a word. Since there's like less people, less competition, that you're more likely to maybe have a rep contact you. Sci-Fi Romance, I think, is hard because with the merchandising, they may not want to put the man chest on the front of iTunes. I don't know. I haven't looked recently to see how much of that there is. But so there are opportunities.
We did a big iBooks, it was iBooks and Apple promo last year. It was after the Novelist Inc. conference. Susan Grant met with a rep, and he suggested she put together a promo of sci-fi authors. And I don't think it did that well on iBooks. Now, I get one of the Kobo promos, and I find it interesting because I'm more likely to get a Kobo promo on my mystery or romantic suspense comedy, but I'll see sales of my sci-fi after that. And I just think it may be an untapped market for them. A lot of the promos only allow you to do free or 99 cents. And I don't discount that much anymore. I'll do not if I have to change the price everywhere. I've done a few book bubs, but that's worth it to do one of those. You get sales all across the platforms. But I think it's interesting. I think there's probably a market on Kobo. It's just hard to reach them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my last question, we're coming up on the hour here, is what made you decide to do illustrations of everybody's pets? And has that been helpful in the marketing? Would you say that was just more for fun, or was it worth investing in?
Well, I'm trying to remember. I think it was a suggestion by Alexis Glenn Latner, one of our authors. She knew an artist, and she thought it would add a little extra something to the anthology. Has it sold books? I have no idea. We have used it extensively in the marketing, and like I said, we did a color book last year using the illustrations, but I just like that it gives us one more level of unique.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's different. Yeah.
So
We've done a little bit of putting it on merchandise over at Zazzle and, using it for giveaways like mugs and t-shirts. And I'm with Pauline. I think it's that little extra something that's different that we do. It's kind of our tradition now. In our book, you can get a picture of your pet. Isn't that what got you to sign up, Lindsay? Pen name you signed up for? Was that artist rendering?
Excellent. All right. So earlier we were talking a little bit about the choosing covers and how it's sort of important to make sure that the cover represents the content of the book so people know what they're getting. And so you talk about putting the man chest on the cover in order to use it as an indicator. What about the fact that it's an anthology? Jeff was talking about how lots of people like to do a 3D cover where it looks like it's a boxed set when it's supposed to be a boxed set. Do you put any thought into trying to make sure that people are aware this is an anthology when you choose your cover?
Well, it says Pets in Space Anthology on the front. That's and we have all the names.
We've been really careful to make sure all the names show up every year. That's like a prominent piece of the cover.
And they're all in the same size. Even though we have, our star authors first, we still have everybody displayed there. That's one reason why you don't see pets on there. The other was that branding problem. We didn't want to have a guy with a pet and have people think that, that they were having a love affair with their pet.
It's not just cats. It's not
that kind of book.
Dogs. Yeah. No.
Well, and everybody's different.
Surprised.
Yeah.
All right, I have one final question for you guys, just a real generic one. What would you say is the ideal size of an anthology? How many stories? Is there a size limit that some retailers won't exceed?
Amazon doesn't like you to have more than 10 names. You have to email them and add anything over 10. So it's and I have to do it because I'm the one that does the uploading. But we still have 11 this year, and the world kept on turning, and Amazon added our other author. So I do think that if it gets too big, that readers get a little overwhelmed, and like Lindsay noted, they'll just wait until the author releases the story and get it then, rather than deal with the overwhelm. But I do think that our branding, we've delivered good stories 2 years in a row. We've been nominated by Library Journal twice for Best Anthology, e-original. So people know that they're going to get really good stories. It isn't like, you know, some anthologies that maybe put together by traditional press, maybe, that as a reader, I've sometimes thought, how did that story make it in there? I hope that we have, you know, better branding.
Hopefully for those who enjoy romance, it should be a lot of fun. A lot of the traditionally published stuff, not a lot, but, you know, sometimes they're more literary, and that's a different audience. You know, it's not the fun little genre. I really want to read 10 sci-fi romances, because who wouldn't? So.
Yeah. And I think the stories are fun, and there's a mix of, you know, the level of adventure, but they all have some adventure and romance, and there's a sense of humor in a lot of the stories, and they're fun. And like I said, we have a range of authors. So Alexis Glenn Latner, her stories tend to be much more sci-final but just very, you know, they're very fun reads. And I find new authors that I love every year when I meet them through Jean, and my to be read, my Kindle is bulging with all the authors and their books and everything. So I feel like we occupy a rather unique place right now, a place that used to be more common maybe, but isn't anymore as things, you know, splinter.
Plus, where else are you going to find science fiction pets? Okay, not cats, not dogs, not horses. Science fiction pets. So, gotta come back.
That's right. I feel like, was everybody's an alien critter? I think it seemed that way.
This year, I think we were. In past years, they've been sort of semi-alien sometimes, but definitely this year we launched.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming and talking with us and answering all my questions as a possible future anthology editor.
Anytime.
Remind us where people can find out more about the anthology and you guys.
PetsInSpaceAntho.com, or just look up for Embrace the Impassioned Pets in Space 3, or Google Pets in Space, where we'll probably come up. You can find me at PaulineBJones.com.
And I'm at Veronica Scott, whatever it is, WordPress.com. You can find me on Twitter anytime. B Scott the author.
All right, and I will include the links too. And this is episode 202. So if people want to just pop by marketingsff.com, they can pick up the anthology or visit your websites. And you guys both have lots of novels out. So if folks are interested, I hope everybody hopes you check them out.
And thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for all the info. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
So long, everybody.
Bye-bye.